Now that WSUS is installed, I'm going to go to Tools, and if we go to the bottom, you'll see the very last option is our WSUS. So I'm going to click on that. What's neat about this, the very first time you click on it, it actually walks you through the entire configuration. Now, what I suggest is when you configure your WSUS, make sure your virtual machine is not connected to the internet when you do it. Because if it is, it's going to download tens of gigs of updates to your WSUS. And we don't want to do that, and we don't need to do that to see the entire configuration. So in this wizard that automatically pops up, it's everything you need to actually get this WSUS configured. So you could walk through this wizard and you're set to walk away. If you were in your real world production environment, you would walk away and you would come back many hours later and it would have downloaded all the updates. On this before you begin, it just says, make sure the firewall is configured to allow client access. Can this computer connect to the upstream server? Now that would be somewhere to download updates from, which we will look at how to download those from Microsoft. And if you have a proxy server that you have to connect through to get to the internet, does it require credentials? And if so, do you have those credentials? So that's just kind of some tips to make sure you have connectivity. Well, I'm going to click Next. Do you want to be part of this Microsoft Update Improvement Program? We don't care about that. That's non-technical. Just sending information back to Microsoft. Now it says, who do you want to synchronize from? I can synchronize from Microsoft Update, or you could synchronize from another WSUS. If you had a branch office and you want to put a WSUS in your branch office, now that would assume that you already have one WSUS in your parent office that synchronizes to Microsoft Update. Now you want to put a WSUS in your branch office. In your branch office, you would say synchronize from another WSUS. You would simply specify the name of your WSUS in your parent office, and now you essentially have these connected to each other. So WSUS in your parent downloads updates from the internet, stores those updates. Then in your branch office, your WSUS pulls the updates across the link from your parent office, stores it in your branch office. So users in the branch office now connect to their local WSUS. Users in the parent office connect to their local WSUS. So we're not having computers in either location cross a WAN link or connect to the internet to download any of these updates. They can all download these from local WSUS servers. Now with this, you have two additional options. The first is easy. Just use SSL when synchronizing update information. That just encrypts the synchronization information. So that's not really a big deal. Straightforward to understand. More important, this is a replica of the upstream server. If you choose this is a replica, then it simply mirrors the updates on the parent WSUS. Now let's say in your branch office, you don't have any IT staff in the branch office, so no one is going to go through WSUS and approve updates or anything like that in your branch office. You want to do that from the parent office. So what I would do, I would, in the parent office, go through my WSUS, examine updates, approve all the updates you need. In my branch office, I would make the WSUS a replica, which is effectively an unmanaged distribution point. Whatever you configure in your parent WSUS, or they'll use the term upstream in many places, your WSUS in your branch office is going to simply mirror that. Scenario 2. If I have administrators that work in the branch office and they need some level of autonomy over WSUS, they want to be able to manage the WSUS updates themselves. They'll test, approve updates, and manage all those things. If that's true, you simply do not make it a replica server. Now, I prefer to say that you are a replica server or you are a non-replica server. The term that Microsoft uses, the official term, either you are a replica server or you are an autonomous WSUS. So if you're not a replica, you're just autonomous. I'm going to select the Synchronize from Microsoft Update, and we'll choose Next. If you need to specify a proxy server, you can specify that here. And that's it. Now it wants to connect to the internet and it wants to download a lot of information. It's going to download the types of updates available, products that can be updated, available languages. Now notice the things that we cannot see. Over here it says choose languages, products, classifications, configure sync schedule. What we can do is configure all this after the fact. So right now, there's no way to get to those until this connects to the internet and downloads all of this additional information. So what I'm going to do is actually cancel this. I'm going to say yes. Now it simply opens WSUS. If I expand my WSUS here, the RTS DC1, I'm going to start with this options at the bottom. Now that wizard we just went through, if I scroll to the bottom here, you can go back to that wizard anytime you want. So if you wanted to reconfigure something in WSUS, going through that wizard is one way to actually do it, but exactly the window we just saw. The other thing they do here, every individual option shows up here. So if we start at the top of this, if I wanted to change my update source, we just saw this. If you want to synchronize from another WSUS, if you want to be a replica or not, if you need a proxy server, you can specify that. That was in our wizard. Now, we were not able to make it to the products and classifications because it had to synchronize to Microsoft first. But with this, if I click on products, notice that I have Exchange. The newest is Exchange 2003. WSUS is an enormous service. It's gigs and gigs in size by itself. So what Microsoft did, they added in what is actually called WSUS 3.0. Now, this is true in Server 2008 all the way up through Server 2019. They give you a bare bones version that's never been updated, but you can still see how it works. You'll see it has the Windows family, Windows 2000, Windows XP. When we were going through that wizard, before we could see the list of products, it said it needed to connect to the internet and download an updated list of products. Now, we don't really have a need to do that, but we know it would look like this. You would simply see Windows 10 would be in the list, Windows Server 2019, Server 2016. You would have all these additional products would be in the list, and you simply select the products that you want to be updated. And this updates on a regular basis. Every time there's a new version or new edition of Windows 10, then it's going to automatically list that version in WSUS. For the classifications, you can simply choose the types of updates you want. Maybe you only want critical and security, so you could select those. If you want to deploy drivers through WSUS, that's a possibility. You could deploy service packs if you elected to. So, products, classifications. Update files and languages. Now, this is interesting. I believe everyone thinks of WSUS as you download updates from Microsoft and you store them on the WSUS server locally. That is what like 99% of environments will actually do. You will store update files locally on this server. It's kind of the point of WSUS in many ways. But an interesting option. At the bottom, it says, do not store update files locally. Computers installed from Microsoft Update. Now, at face value, that seems to kind of defeat the purpose of having a WSUS if clients still connect to Microsoft. Now, the purpose of this, let's say you have a smaller office. You want to completely control which updates your computers download, but you don't care that they download the updates from Microsoft. Maybe you only have 20, 30 computers, and you have a 50 megabyte internet connection. A connection that fast, 30 computers downloading updates, that's not going to saturate your connection. You wouldn't even notice. So what you can do is still have a WSUS. It will download metadata, which is really a list of updates and information about the updates. It will download that, store it locally. You go through the list and you click off the updates you want your computers to install. Now your client computers will read the list and they will only install updates that you approve in the list, but they will connect back to Microsoft Update through the internet to actually do it. So that's an option, just not a very common option. The other thing here is languages. If you wanted to specify what languages, now this does require for us to have everything updated before you could select these. But you could go through and select languages, dialects of different languages that you want this to download. Our synchronization schedule. What time do you want to synchronize? So you can pick a time and how many times a day do you intend to synchronize. So that's easy. This is exciting. Automatic approvals. You know, configuring WSUS is actually very easy. you just have to have a little planning done before you implement this. Like what products do you want to update, those types of things, what classifications. But walking through WSUS and configuring it is pretty straightforward. The most challenging thing I have found about WSUS or any similar type product, someone has to come to this and manage it on like a daily basis. If not a daily basis, at a minimum, a weekly basis. Because WSUS downloads updates. Somebody has to go look at the update and say, yes, I approve this, or no, I decline this, before it could ever be installed on your client computers. You'd have to approve it. So that part is highly managed. One of the concerns, Microsoft puts out some security update or some critical update that we really need to install, but somehow, maybe the person that manages WSUS most often, they're on vacation. And whoever is supposed to do this, they don't get around to it, they forget, it falls through the cracks. Now you have some vulnerability across all your systems. Well, an option to make sure that does not happen is an automatic approval rule. Now, what I'm going to do is choose a new rule here. So here it says, step 1, when an update is a specific classification, I'm going to click this any classification, and I'm just going to say if it's a critical update or security. And we'll say okay for that. When an update is a specific product, now again, we don't want to burn 40 or 50 gigs of bandwidth downloading all this updated information. So right now it says when an update is in any product, but if I click that, you would get a list of Windows 10 and all the current operating systems once you download this 40, 50 gigs of information. Just decide what products you want. But I'm going to leave it on any right now. Then you can decide which computers this actually applies to. So I could have this apply to all computers, or we could actually create computer groups. The other thing I can do, or really the last thing, set a deadline for approval. What this means, my WSUS downloads some updates. You have 7 days to decide what you want to do with this update if it meets this rule. So if it's a critical update and a security update and WSUS downloads it, 7 days go by and no action's taken against this. It's not approved. I mean, if it was approved, that would already be installed. It's not declined. So no one looked at this and said, I don't actually want this to be deployed. They have taken no action against it. Then we can have this automatically approve itself and it'll start being installed on our clients. That is a little dangerous, but I always say you have to pick your poison. If you're managing this correctly, then someone would, within 7 days, someone would have came here and said, nope, I want to approve this update and I want to decline these other updates. And this would be completely managed. This would only be if you neglected to do that for some reason. Do you want this to err on the side of caution and deploy those updates? Make sure you don't have any vulnerabilities, or do you not? Ideally, if you even created these, then we would still never get to a point that we went like 7 days before we approved or declined these updates ourselves. Now with this, you can adjust it. So maybe 14 works better for you. You could set that to whatever you want. So you could extend that or even decrease. Now give this a name and you could simply save it. But I'm going to click cancel there because we don't actually need that rule. The other, it's really unrelated. This advanced tab here, this first part is about WSUS. Automatically approve updates to the WSUS product itself. What that means, in WSUS, when there's a new version of Windows 10, do I want WSUS to automatically download that new product? If Microsoft has a new version of Server 2019, do I want that automatically downloaded and have it just show up in my products list? You do. There's no security concern or testing or anything like that with having the WSUS apply those types of updates. So just think of that as this as an update for the WSUS product itself. That's it. Unrelated to that setting, revisions to updates. If you've ever sat up wondering, how is it that you can watch the news and they'll say there's some vulnerability in Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge or Windows 10, and it seems like the next day, if not the same day, Microsoft already has a patch. Fascinating how they can do that so fast. Well, they don't always get it right. Many patches are revised 2, 3, 4, some I've seen have been revised more than 5 times. So the initial patch that Microsoft deploys, it's no way they could test this patch under every conceivable configuration for every Windows machine in the world. So often what happens, they'll release an A version that has a few things wrong with it. So they'll correct it, then they will release a B version. Maybe they have a few issues with that, and at some point they release a C version. Well, if I'm the administrator and I manage WSUS, do I want to have to test every single revision, A, B, C, and so on, of these patches? Or if I have approved the A version, do I just want to assume the B version is going to be okay in my environment and have it automatically approved? Well, there's no right answer to that. I mean, that's your preference in your environment. But Microsoft defaults to do that. So you'll see revisions to updates automatically approve new revisions of updates that are already approved. So the B version is going to auto-approve and start being installed on your clients. And with that, to make our life easy, automatically decline updates when a new revision causes them to expire. The other concern, but we don't have to worry about it, I will never be in a situation where there's an A version of a patch and a B version and both are being deployed. When you have the B version of this patch downloaded, it will automatically set the A version to decline so it stops installing. I don't manually have to go through and try to remove it or anything like that. So they did think ahead with that part. Pretty fascinating. Now, the few other things here. On the computers, I can create computer groups in the WSUS console itself. You could also manage this through group policy. So that just depends on how you want this managed. So either you create computer groups locally here on this computers, or they get deployed through group policy and computers get assigned. But I'm going to leave this on the use the update services console for now. Now, the other things here, we don't really care about that much. The server cleanup wizard, that just helps you remove unused updates. If you have computers that maybe are no longer in the environment, you've disjoined them from the domain, maybe they've been re-imaged and renamed, you don't want those showing up in WSUS and have them continuously saying that they're missing updates. So with this, when I run this cleanup, if you've not talked to WSUS in 30 days, it just deletes your computer account from the view in WSUS. And when I run reports on computers missing updates, you just won't be in the list anymore. Now, if you connect to the network, say 40 days later, you're just going to re-register with WSUS and then you'll show up in the list. Just cuts down on clutter. All of these are actually just cutting down on clutter. If we have any unneeded files, if you have updates that have expired, once they're expired, they're not going to be deployed to your clients anymore. So you can have those automatically decline. If you have updates that have been superseded, like a new version of the update has been pulled down, you can just have this clean itself up. And for that, it's nothing more than selecting which of those you want. And it's going to run through and do all of those things. Now, we don't really have any information, so it went quick. But it'll tell you what it did. How many updates were deleted. If any computers were removed that have not contacted, it would tell you how many of those were deleted. But we'll just click Finish there. Now, some of this is related to reporting. So there's a reporting roll-up, just reports. Email notification. If you want to be emailed whenever the WSUS has new updates that need to be approved, just to get your attention. The update improvement program we talked about, if you want to join that, that's really non-technical. Just sends information back to Microsoft. And personalization. If I have a downstream WSUS server, like in my branch office, and a parent WSUS, with this, I can say I want to include computer and status from replica downstream servers. So if I'm in the parent office and I run any of these reports, I would get info about the parent WSUS or the upstream and the downstream WSUS. Or I could say, maybe I don't manage the downstream WSUS in the branch office. I just want information related to this WSUS that I'm actually on. Pretty fascinating. That's the entire configuration. And we saw this wizard, which is the initial wizard we went through. Every configuration in WSUS is under this options. Now, the other things here. Reports, that's just a way to view reports, so nothing technical really, but it's pretty detailed. You can view computer status, you can view status related to updates themselves. If any updates fail to install, you can have reporting that covers all of that type of information. If we go to synchronizations, I can see how many synchronizations we've actually had. I can see what time they started, what time they stopped. I can also force a synchronization with this synchronize now. It'll just try to connect to Microsoft or your upstream, and it will automatically attempt to synchronize. Now, we're not connected to the internet because we don't want to download that, so this will sit on 0 for a while, then it'll eventually just say it couldn't contact the upstream server. Now, downstream server, you would only have something here if we were on a upstream or parent WSUS and you deployed a WSUS in your branch office. Well, here you would see if it's a replica or if it's autonomous, it would tell you that here. That would actually be the mode, replica or autonomous, and it would give you the name of the server and the time it last synchronized. So really, that's just informative, nothing to actually configure there. If we go to computers, we have a computer group that already exists named All Computers. Every computer in WSUS is going to show up here. Now, there's also an option to add a computer group. So let's say I want to add a group and I'm going to name it Sales. We'll actually name it Sales-Computers. I could just add. That's going to show up here. So when computers register with WSUS, I can simply have them added to this Sales Computers group. Now, the advantage of that, when I deploy updates, or approve updates, I should say, I can approve updates for a specific group of computers. So if I want Sales Computers to get these updates, I could have it just deploy to Sales Computers. A common way this is done, or maybe the most common use, I want to test these updates. I want to make sure they don't break anything. So an easy way to do that is to initially, I created that as a sub. I didn't realize I had clicked on Sales Computers. So I'm actually going to delete that. And I'm going to click on All Computers again. You can have a hierarchy of computer groups. I just didn't realize I had clicked on the Sales Computers and stayed there. But now you'll see under All Computers, my test dev shows up. So I could put a few computers in that group. Now, when I approve updates initially, maybe I approve it for that group. We use those computers or have some users use those computers. Maybe in your departments, you have a handful of users per department and you have updates deployed to just those computers. You know, those computers could be a member of this test dev group, and you just monitor those computers. If the updates cause no issues after 7 days or whatever your company believes is appropriate, then you can deploy it to either all computers or your other computer groups you have defined. Now, the other thing we have here is unassigned computers. If I don't make you a member of any group, then you just show up in this unassigned. Now, all computers is going to show you truly all computers. Then you could just look at Sales Computers, test dev computers, or computers you have not added to one of these groups would just be under unassigned. But all computers would show all three of these groups the way we're laid out now. So pretty fascinating. If we go to updates, under updates, I can view all updates. I can view critical, security, the WSUS updates. We don't care about the WSUS updates. That's the product updates. So that's not being deployed to clients or anything like that. WSUS will just tell you that it downloaded new products or new classifications, something like that. Pretty fascinating. What I'm going to do now is pull up group policy. So I'm going to go back to Server Manager, Tools. In Group Policy Management, I'm just going to expand my domain and I'm just going to edit one of my existing policies. So I'm going to right click on this default domain policy and choose Edit. When that opens up, I'm going to expand my computer configuration, policies, administrative templates, Windows components. Near the bottom of the list, you'll see Windows Update. So I'm going to open the Windows Update. There are a lot of settings here, but only a few we care about. One, specify intranet Microsoft Update Service location. This is how you tell your clients they need to connect to WSUS. By default, because of a registry setting, all Microsoft computers, clients and servers, connect back to the Microsoft Update website. So I would simply go to this setting, and here I would enable this, and I would specify my WSUS server. So I could simply key in the name of WSUS. Now, generally, all these would be WSUS servers. Your statistics server, that's going to be a WSUS, but that does all the reporting for you. If you have more than one WSUS, you could set it as an alternate download server here. So a WSUS server is actually a web server. We saw when I installed it, it also installs some IIS components. So with this, it simply writes this URL into your clients and servers, and they will now connect to that WSUS. Now, you'll often see this in like a URL format like wsus.rtsnetworking.com. Well, this would be whatever the name of your WSUS server actually is. And you would simply have that for all of these. Maybe for an alternate, you have WSUS1, or just whatever the name of your WSUS server is. So that is an extremely important setting to get your clients directed to WSUS. If you don't do that, they simply keep connecting to Microsoft Update and downloading updates from there, not from your WSUS. In addition to that, I can go to Configure Automatic Updates, and I can enable this, and I could simply choose the day and time that you should download updates. So whatever schedule we want, I can define that here. That's really the same as if you went to like Control Panel or now Windows Settings on Windows 10 and you set your own schedule. It even has the same options, although the wording is slightly different. But I would auto download and schedule the install. Maybe I do this Tuesday at 09. Now updates will be deployed at that time, whatever we believe is appropriate. A lot of other settings here, they're not specifically related to WSUS, but you'll see a lot of things related to restarting, like turn off, auto restart during active hours, so my clients don't reboot during the day if they deploy updates. Configure auto restart required notification for updates. So a lot of these are related to not WSUS specifically, but related to managing the Windows update on the client side. Now there is a setting here, enable client-side targeting. This says it specifies a target group name or names that should be used to receive updates from an intranet Microsoft Update service. Okay, that would be WSUS. What I would do with this client-side targeting is enable this, and I would, now let's say this is an OU level policy. You would define the name of a group. I'm going to name it Domain Clients. Now, if I were to OK this, this group would automatically be created in my WSUS, and the computers that process this setting would become a member of that group. So an example of that, if we were to go back to WSUS, and I'm going to go to Computers, right now I have these groups I manually created that show up here. Well, if I were to go back to Options, Computers, now those settings would simply be pulled down from Group Policy, and client computers would be joined to a group based on that. So if I had an organization unit for sales, human resources, marketing, finance, I would just have a GPO for each of those organizational units that created a computer group by name, and computers in those OUs would automatically become members of that computer group. Eliminates the need of me manually creating these computer groups here. Just have it all managed through Group Policy. Assuming your group policy structure lends itself to that type of configuration. Fairly straightforward overall. Like many things we looked at, it is more planning than anything else. But that's our walk through the WSUS configuration.